you had the skill assessment, and I'm excited to dive into that. And before you go straight in, I wanted to show you this because there is a journey of skill building. And this alludes to what I mentioned last time because I was talking about how, people want to, let's say, take a course or do this or do that. And they're like, oh, I'm there. And skill building is work. That's why I love thinking about habit building with it. And so I want you just to read this and just to get an idea of, okay, this is a journey you're going on with some things. And you've noticed probably some things you're like, oh, I'm definitely at the mastery level. But you'll also notice like, okay, maybe there's a level I'm more ignorant around and I'm realizing that more. So I just want you to read this and then tell me your thoughts.
This is kind of like what I was missing when I was working through this. This is cool, man. Unconscious, unskilled, ignorance. Read it like that.
Sure.
Ignorance. You are unaware of the skill and your lack of competence. Conscious, unskilled, awareness. You are aware of the skill but are not yet competent. Conscious skilled, learning. You are able to use the skill but only with effort. Unconscious skilled, mastery. Performing the skill becomes automatic.
What are your thoughts around that?
It's so helpful because there's like so much when we're walking through this. And I think like the good example we'll see is like when I actually think that I'm above average with certain things, but it's aware and learning, it's not mastery. Like, and we've talked a lot about it already just in today's session where it takes energy, right? To pause as an example. And I think these are the types of things like the grading is helpful because and there were some things that I was ignorant to. And then by seeing that like tier 2, you start to realize how those tie into the tier 1 skill, which is also really helpful, right? Because it's not really a good feeling to be ignorant to something that's aligned to a skill. It's not like we're looking at something that's aligned to a vice, So being able to see it and then be able to do something about it, like at least be aware, learn, and then master is cool. And it's helpful.
Good. And that's one reason why I wanted to show you that, just to be able to see it can be overwhelming because there's so much to work on. And personally, I love stuff like this for you because for a fact you can't do it all. If it was too small, you would try to do it all. And this kind of forces you to say, I can only really focus on one, maybe two. And that's a good thing because this isn't the only thing you're going to be working on. You're working on multiple things. So this just gives you an idea of, okay, where should I put my energy and focus? So we're going through the self-leadership skills, and I'm excited to hear let's go one by one, probably ask you some questions in the middle of it. But I want you to this will be helpful for you to process, but also for people to hear, talk about what you scored yourself as, but also maybe where do you feel like you were in relation to that? Do you feel like, okay, this was pretty on, or maybe I was a little bit more skilled than I thought, or maybe I was less skilled than I thought? So walk me through that.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'll add just like globally too is, and you alluded to it, but there's so much. And like even if we're just looking at the first 10, when I got to this, like, do you see yourself working on this skill in the next year? I was really honest, like, because it's hard not to want to work on all of them because there's not, and nothing I got 100 on, but there's some I feel really strong about. But when I read this tier 2 information, I mean, there's so much learning and mastery that needs to happen. So I'll just do a practice round and let me know if you want me to read more. You want me to do a round 2? Read it all?
Sure. I mean,
I'll stick to this stuff.
yeah, let's do that. I feel like the other may be a little overwhelming.
It'll come out in my like discussion points too.
Right.
So this is for self-awareness. My leader skill assessment score was actually an 80%, which is more so on the high side from all the scores, relatively speaking. But I put average on this one. The strengths and these types of things too that are on here, these are things I'm learning, I haven't mastered. So reflect daily, know what I'm doing, feeling, and thinking. So I kind of like added all those together because I'm very aware of them, but I think it's this pursuit of trying to figure out, is it true? Does that make sense? So it's like I know what I'm thinking, I know what I'm feeling, I'm very aware of what I'm doing. I'm just not sure if it's the truth. We'll dig into that one later. Growth opportunities, sit in silence, and then knowing my strengths and weaknesses. I think those are like the two key ones that, like, as I looked at self-awareness, which again, from a testing perspective, I did pretty good on, but I still feel like as it relates to my strengths and weaknesses, it's similar to my goals where like I'm not writing them down and facing them. I think I look at where my life has gone and where I'm at in my life, and I assume that I have some good strengths and have probably a few weaknesses, but I also have not intentionally tried to like face them or write them down and improve my weaknesses. And even like I think about this from like an interview perspective, right? Like if I was going for a job interview, it's well, my weakness is that I'm too emotional because I love the company so much. Like these types of things where it's like I don't necessarily know if I've ever been really honest with myself with like my weaknesses. And so that was really my focus area, was strengths and weaknesses for this one.
It's good. Anything else you want to share around that?
Strengths and weaknesses. I think this gets into, and there's a concept in here too, like aware of what you wish to accomplish in the future. I think it's interesting how I did notice this pattern too. Like level 5, I felt strongest, and like levels 1, 2, 3 were the ones where I tended to be like, it's almost like I skipped some parts. I went straight to like this very vivid vision of like what I'm doing in my future, but I haven't actually figured out like what I'm good at.
I love it. One thing about self-awareness that I love to bring up is you never arrive. And when you think about all these skills, even if you hit mastery, there's always learning and improvement happening. And so for some of those things, I think it's just good to know of, if I'm going to lean into this more, here's how I can lean into it more, instead of just like, I guess I've been reflecting. Let me just keep reflecting. What are some other things that you can do to really be able to bring this out more? And I think what you did was awesome, because that's the main thing you want to know. How do I get better at this? What does that look like over time? So on and so forth. So yeah, let's keep going.
Next skill.
Next skill.
All right. I'm glad you didn't dig into the sit in silence. I appreciate that. All right, this one is timely decision making. So I scored a 70 and I gave myself below average. The strengths on this one was staying on course and making easy decisions automatic. And that's it. The growth opportunity, pause and reflect. That one just really spoke to me. Control the controllable. And then the other one was delay decision making. And I think that, along with like this decision quota, this pre-decision making, all these concepts around making decisions, was something like it really helped me realize like this is not a skill of mine. And mostly because I'm always trying to do way too many decisions, and therefore like, are they even of quality type of stuff, which we'll get to learning on the fly too. But where I want to focus, yes, I want to work on this skill next year. And where my focus and attention will be, inventorying decisions, prioritizing those decisions, and acting with more intention, and then focusing on the controllable.
It's awesome. I remember last time you said, I feel like this should be higher. What made you think it was high to begin with?
It just feels like one of those skills where, again, and I have to be honest with like the things I've overcame in my life and just some of my successes. It's interesting that I would feel below average faced with the realities of what a timely decision maker is good at. I think it's almost more just like the verifiable track record. But then as you work through these skills, you start to see where you were carrying some of the weight unknowingly. It wasn't that you were necessarily good at the timely decision making, but maybe it was that you were prioritizing the right goals, right? Or at least being really good in one specific area versus the others. I think about this a lot, like with tech too. There's always so many balls that you're juggling. There's usually 2 of them that you can't drop, and it helps you in almost a bad way. But as you see how many balls I'm juggling these days, they're going to drop. And I'm not sure at what point I'm going to be okay with certain ones dropping, but figuring out which ones can't drop would be a good start.
It's good. Love it. Let's go to the next one.
All right. Skill 3, learning on the fly. I scored a 74, and I actually gave myself an average score on this one. Strengths were understand the underlying structure, adding new information, and then being open to change. Growth opportunities, optimistic outlook, analyze success and failures, enjoy the challenge of unfamiliar tasks. Do you see yourself working on this skill? No. Is that okay,
Seems
Coach?
like that was hard for you to say. You're
No.
like, is that the wrong answer?
And this is, I guess, a skill like, and this is like open kimono. Like, I had a problem with this one to start, right? We talked a little bit about it last time. And like, I look at this learning on the fly, like, I am very good with change, but the growth opportunities I do think we're going to address with some of the other skills. So, as an example, like, looking back and assessing what went well, what didn't go well, just like goals, it's not intentional. It happens in my head, but I think it happens in a very appeasing way. It's not a reality check as it should be. And then I think the other thing that really came out in one of the other things is like, what are you doing with the data, right? Like, that's something where like the tracking and the elaborate planning, I really want to focus on, which we'll get to.
I'm so happy because the way you're talking through this is so awesome. It's just,
Cool.
it's fun for me to see you think about your growth and development in a deeper and more sophisticated way, right? Of here's different skills, here's where I'm at, here's what I can work on, here's what I'm going to pause on. And just by you saying, you know what, I think I'm not going to work on this next year, that is growth. I told you I'll point out the growth, bro. That is growth right there, because I know if you see something lower, then you're going to want to work on it. And the fact that you're saying this can wait, love that.
And it's not, I'm so conscious these days about like the hours in the day, right? And I think what's cool about this is, and we've never actually talked about this, but it's really interesting. Everything that you and I are working on, it has nothing to do with business or personal. Like, it's going to help me as a human being in my business life, in my personal life, in my work, in my life. Like, that's really cool. And so when I think about not focusing more on more of these, it's kind of hard, you know? And that's like when I say I'm not going to work on this, just know I'm saying it reluctantly. Like, I think this type of stuff is going to be really helpful, but I don't think I'm too far off, and I don't think I'm ignorant to any of these level 2 aspects. Tier 2, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Cool, man. All right, skill 4, strategic agility. I gave myself an average rating, and my leader skill assessment score was actually an 84, so pretty good. Strengths, drum roll, dream about the future.
Shocker.
Curiosity and generalist. Growth opportunities, make elaborate plans. Create pathways in the fog. Create competitive strategies and plan. Those are like the big 3. Yes, I want to work on this. And specifically, I want to pay attention to planning and documenting and simplifying complex information.
There's a little bit of emphasis around make elaborate plans. Can you elaborate on that?
And I'll give you a story, you know, and so Kay and I are working on a new initiative, and it's very much hers. It's vanity, and we've been very focused. So we have like literally a calendar 9 to 9:30 every day where we sit down and we look at all the tasks that we've put together and put out there in the ether, and we're knocking them down as it makes sense based on, you know, somewhat of a good track record and plan on how we should be starting a business. So the conversation we had today is, but what are we going to be doing for Vanity in 3 months, in 4 months, in 5 months, in 6 months? And selfishly, it's because I'm now trying to plan my time on when I'm going to be growing my strategic agility. No, but jokes aside, it's one of these things where we're really good at short-term operating and having a great long-term vision. There's this middle tier of, let's say, months that I don't think I do a very good job at. And whether that's because I'm so used to how every plan has so much evolution, like, the best project management plan in the world is going to be scope creep, right? There's going to be challenges in the resources and the time and the skills, whatever. And I think a lot of that has caused me to be very agile. And in like a technical software delivery term, like 2 weeks, you hear me talk about it a lot. Like I'm focused on 2 weeks. I have a little bit of a plan for 6 months, 6 years, but like for the most part, I'm focused on 6 weeks. So very a long answer of there's a lot of work I can do in planning. And I think as we go through some of these other skills, I think this is where focusing on my strategic agility is going to really help with my ability to manage my energy.
Love it.
All right. Skill 5, decision quality. And I forgot to say if I was above average, average, or below average. So I'm going to answer that after I read it. I did 80% on this one on the leadership skill assessment score. Strengths were thinking through facts and ideas simultaneously, learn, unlearn, and relearn. And then creative, doable alternatives. And then growth opportunities, appropriate framing, commitment to action. I didn't see myself working on this, so I guess we'll say I thought I was above average. Which is how I actually feel. It's the truth. I think the quality of my decisions in it's a lot more chaotic. I think of it like a transcendental meditation perspective, like they come out cool, calm, and collected, the decisions, but there's so much processing that's happening. Some of it's of valuable information, but a lot of it is just chaos. But I think that's kind of where you get to this like ideas and facts in harmony, or not in harmony. But I feel good about decision quality.
I love it. This is good. First of all, hearing you talk through this is very helpful. So if you're wondering like, am I doing this right? You're doing it perfectly.
Okay.
So partially I want to hear your thoughts based upon what you took and how you're seeing it now.
Awesome. And I guess 2 things just for the camera. I'm not comfortable reading out loud. And I have really bad handwriting. All right.
You're doing great.
Leader skill. I feel like a second grade teacher comment. I'm gonna move past it. Leader skill assessment. Goal and priority setting. I got a 74%. I rated myself below average. The only strength I thought I had on this one was adaptability. And actually, let me just read what you have here for adaptability. Take risk and embrace learning. I'm pretty good at that, but that was really the only thing that I felt like I was strong at. And I think I've learned through adapting for 32 years. But the growth opportunities, avoid, limit non-important tasks, energy allocation. I feel like I should let you guess the last one. Let's see how good you are with this.
Gosh. Energy out. Let me think. I'm trying to remember what's in goal and priority setting. No, that's action oriented. I don't know.
Positive outlook.
Positive outlook. Okay.
I figured you would have got that, but then as I asked you the question, I was like, there's like at least 5 other ones.
I would have been impressed if I did. I'm like going through my head like
That was
what's in the
amazing.
circle.
I would have been impressed, but I also would have been like, I'm working on this now. Now I'm just going to put it off to the wayside. But I am looking to work on this skill in the next year. It's definitely something I think will really benefit me. And it starts with setting smart goals and using those to better focus and allocate my time and my days. So you'll start to see like some of the ones that we omitted, like this is really the one I'm going to focus on. And I think looking at my goals, seeing what I've been successful with, seeing what I've failed on, and then using that data to help me better allocate my energy. And just in general, I like to think a lot like I'm good at prioritizing my day, but I don't really think that's true. I think I do the things that I want to do first, not the hardest things first. And I think that leads to me having like really drawn out days. But yeah, goal and priority setting is definitely something I want to work on. I don't know if I already said this, but I got 74 on that one, and I rated myself below average. A lot of humility rating yourself below average. Self-assessment. I've came a long way. All right, action oriented, skill number 7. I gave myself above average performance on this, and I did score an 87%. And you'll see this as ironic, but the first strength is move fast. That may be newly acquired. I can't tell you the statement that Ike and I use here, but it's move fast and break stuff. Learn by doing, risk taking, and fail forward are all strengths. Growth opportunities, do hard things, and achievement oriented. Achievement orientation too, I think it's important to read this one. So it's, again, have a positive attitude and take ownership. I think the ownership we're good at, aware of at least, learning, but the positive attitude's got a lot of progress to be made. I said I'm not going to work on this skill this year, but I think, again, you kind of see like the key aspects are part of other things that hopefully will materialize themselves in better achievement orientation.
Do you see how like this positivity is like weaving through some of
Yeah,
this?
man, it is.
It's like you can't escape it.
No, and I think it's reassuring just with the statements I made starting the conversation. Like I feel the negative tendencies and we're working on it, and it comes with the pauses. And again, there's still situations where I'm back to negative Ned, but positive Pete will prevail.
Come on.
Come on. All right, this is a good one. Skill number 8, one of my best, work-life balance. I got a 63, D minus. I gave myself below average performance. On strengths, though, I did have a few. I thought saying no, morning routine, and then set deep work periods has been things that I think are strong suits. But then on the growth opportunities, shut down routine, prioritizing professional and personal goals, and then planning over a month out are definitely areas to work on. Yes, I want to work on this, and my focus and attention will be on calendar management, setting goals and priorities with short, medium, and long-term focuses, shutting off, and having downtime plans. I thought were important.
I love it. When people see work-life balance, a lot of people don't like that language. I almost was hesitant to put that. I mean, I most of the times don't even say work-life balance. I might say work-life flow, work-life rhythm, and I'll use different words like that. But I put balance in there because I love this idea of doesn't mean you get balance, but you want to make it more balanced. Instead of it shifting all the way to one direction, you're like, I notice that's like this. How do I change that? And I think that's an important thing to do because we can stay in this like work's really, really heavy and we're just staying there and we'll stay there for months and months and months and months and months. And it's like, hold on a second. What if we recognize that earlier to say, hey, this has been going on for 2 to 3 weeks. I need to shift things.
I really like it. I'm thinking about this concept too of like the brain and mind. And I know I gave some nonsense, but also a lot of people believe like work is life, life is work. But I do feel that when I appreciate life as its own living organism and I tend to it and I work on it, work gets better. So I think however much people work and try to distract themselves with like the work hard culture, I've enjoyed having more of a life, even coming back to like little things like reading. Like when you're watching something for work or you're reading something that's applicable to work, you had actually suggested like fiction books. I haven't taken that quantum leap yet, but I have started reading and more so just for pleasure. And it's been helpful, for a lot of weird reasons too. But I think I really enjoyed how you called it a shutdown routine. Like that in and of itself is something that I relate to. We talked a little bit too about how I've been having trouble not sleeping with the TV on. It's like a traditionally speaking bad habit, But working on this shutdown routine is something I'm really determined in. It's mostly because I want to have higher quality sleep. But I think too the midday appropriate shutdown is another thing I want to get good at, and just being able to have work and a life. Wasting a lot of time there, I'm sorry, but that
That's
makes
awesome.
sense.
No, it's great. I love you talking about it because it's something you want to work on. So it's really helpful to hear.
Okay, awesome. Skill 9, measuring, managing goals and priorities. I gave myself a below average performance on this one. I scored a 77%. Strengths, I said build healthy habits and routines and then monitor progress, learning new. Growth opportunities, track, pivot, monitor, evaluate, forecast, energy management. Which again, like similar themes as other skills, but definitely something I want to work on. And the focusing of my attention is going to be on limiting my focus and becoming more intentional long term versus just focusing on day to day. And then I put a asterisk next to energy management. Kind of gets back to like what we had mentioned with like the impromptu requests in the middle of the day, but it's weird. It's interesting to be at a, and I don't know if it even matters if you're at a certain point in your life, but like where you're actually prioritizing your own energy over somebody that needs help with something. You know, it's like a character shift in a weird way, but a good one. Skill 10, drive for results. So I got an 83% on this one, and I did rate myself above average. Strengths, top performer, review ROI, push others, take calculated risks, innovate. Growth opportunities, I can, I will, tunnel vision, focus, and momentum. This is something I was hoping to work on this year, which again, above average, but it is something I want to work on, and specifically on the exceeding and creating more challenging goals. And I really want to get laser focused on the right things. You actually posted something from the Grow or Die account. I'm not going to get this right, but like, how can you get momentum if you're focused on a number of different things? And I feel that, you know, like I really related to that. That's somewhat what you were saying, right?
I think so. I'm
Okay.
tracing back to
But
what
it's
it
just
might
like
have been.
how can you really get momentum with something if you're just in a million different areas, you know? And I think that related to me. It hit home for sure.
So that was great and insightful. You want to work on 60% of the things.
It's so funny too though because I really was so proud of it. That means 4 of the 10 I said, Ike, these can wait.
That's progress.
Progress.